Welcome back, dear friends, to another exciting episode of the Dispensation of Baha'u'llah. We are on part 17, part 2, covering paragraphs 62 through 67. And without any further ado, dear friends, we'll have our opening prayer. Thank you so much. Is there any remover of difficulties save God? Say, praised be God, He is God. All are His servants, and all abide by His bidding. The Bahá. Well, dear friends, welcome back. Now, let's get into our study, dear friends. We're in our study of the Blessed Bab in the Dispensation of Baha'u'llah. If you're like, hey, I'm just joining for the first time, what are you guys studying? Well, dear friends, we're studying the Dispensation of Baha'u'llah. And the Dispensation of Baha'u'llah is found in the World Order of Baha'u'llah. It is one of the selected letters that starts on page 97 of the World Order of Baha'u'llah, okay? And we are right now covering paragraph 62 through 67 of the Dispensation of Baha'u'llah. And this is a section that is covering the Blessed Bab, okay? So that's where we are, just to fill in any of the dear friends that are just joining us at this point in time. So let's get back into it. This is we are covering the greatness of the Blessed Bab, as well as the relationship to the twin, one of the twin manifestations to Baha'u'llah. Okay, so let me get my slide in and make sure everybody is with us. So I'm not, there we are. Okay, so dear friends, we're resuming where we were, and we were studying and talking about the symbolism of the divine light, okay? This is one of the symbols mentioned in paragraph 62, where he mentions, I am the light which the finger of God hath lit within its niche and caused to shine with deathless splendor. This is in paragraph 62. So there are numerous references also to the burning bush, and this is also in paragraph 62, talking about the burning bush. He says, I am the flame of that supernal light that glowed upon Sinai in the gladsome spot and lay concealed in the midst of the burning bush. So there's many references to this burning bush in the writings of Baha'u'llah. And in the Kitab Ahdas, this is the most holy book, Baha'u'llah states, say, he it is who have caused the rock to shout and the burning bush to lift up its voice upon the mount, rising above the Holy Land, and proclaim, the kingdom is God's, the sovereign Lord of all, the all-powerful, the loving. So all this is the most great essence communicating as when it's the burning bush speaking, or the divine light speaking, or these symbolism of these that here says, I am the flame. This is a symbolism of all for the most great spirit communicating. So we'll carry on. According to the beloved guardian, Shoghi Effendi, such statements do not imply that the Bab and Baha'u'llah are the intermediaries between God and his manifestations. And in a letter to an individual, he explicitly explains, Baha'u'llah is not an intermediary between other manifestations and God. Each has his own relation to the primal source, but in the sense that Baha'u'llah is the greatest manifestation to yet appear, the one who consummates the revelation of Moses. He was the one Moses conversed with in the burning bush. In other words, Baha'u'llah identifies the glory of the Godhead on that occasion with himself. No distinction can be made amongst the prophets in the sense that they all proceed from one source and are of one essence, but their stations and functions in this world are different. So every one of these manifestations proceed from one source and are of one essence. This is the principle. Does anyone know what the principle that this is one of the major principles of the Baha'i faith? What is that term again? Does anyone remember? The principle of progressive revelation, right? So this is the hallmark principle of progressive revelation. And here again, reiterated by the beloved guardian in this extract, that all the manifestations of God emanate from the same source, utter the same speech, and have, but their stations and functions in this world are different. So they have different roles and functions. And obviously that is dependent upon the capacities of the peoples in which they, per se, arrive in. And so the intensity of the revelations are different. Okay. And this here is an extract that I found so apt. This is from the Blessed Bab. He says, "O peoples of the earth." Oh, my chubby finger, I apologize. "O peoples of the earth, verily the resplendent light of God hath appeared in your midst, that ye may be guided aright to the ways of peace, and by the leave of God step out of the darkness into the light, and onto this far extended path of truth." This is such an awesome extract from the Blessed Bab, and we find this in selections from the writings of the Blessed Bab. What I love about this is several things. One is the proclamation of the Blessed Bab. "O peoples of the earth." He is talking to all of humanity here. "O peoples of the earth, verily the resplendent light of God," the outpourings of the revelation has come. "The resplendent light of God hath appeared in your midst, that ye may be guided aright to the ways of peace, and by the leave of God step out."
Sorry, I don't have a link. And I've sent you
Sorry,
the
Ms.
numbers. Yeah.
No worries. So saying step out of the darkness. And if you recall from our study, dear friends, in Advent of Divine Justice, right? If you recall from our studies in the Advent of Divine Justice, there was a whole section that we talked about this light and darkness, that the manifestations of God, when they appear, the whole world is enveloped in darkness. And when we talk about darkness, we're not talking about light and dark. We're literally talking about it is in a period of spiritual darkness, right? And the degeneracy, the corruption, all the qualities of laxity of moral character. The world is entrenched in a period of darkness. And so when the manifestation of God appears, that is when they are the light bringers to the world. So they are literally the spiritual torches entering into the world and bringing this new, new lamp, new light to the world. And so here the Blessed Bab is stating, "O peoples of the earth, verily the resplendent light of God hath appeared in your midst, that ye may be guided aright to the ways of peace, and by the leave of God, step out of the darkness and into the light." So here the Blessed Bab is saying, you are in the darkness. Step out of the darkness and into the light. and onto this far extended path of truth. And interestingly, dear friends, as a Baha'i, as a follower of the light, Baha'u'llah, this is really what as Baha'is we should be doing. We should have been leaving this path of darkness when we proclaim ourselves as a Baha'i. I am a Baha'i. We are a follower of the light. We should have left this path of darkness and entered into this far extended path of truth. Oh, moving on, dear friends. So we enter into paragraph 63. This is an incredible proclamation here of the Blessed Bab in the opening of paragraph 63. I am the primal point. What a cool statement, right? So here we go. In paragraph 63, the Blessed Bab further reveals his authority and power. Initially, he refers to himself as the primal point. Let me get my dear friend Riaz John. Riaz John, could you state this? Your Persian is much better than I can.
Oh yes. All right. نقطه اولا.
Nuqtay Allah. Am I close?
نقطه اولا. Yeah, نقطه اولا.
Nuqtay Allah. There we go.
Yeah,
Allah.
it's
Primal point.
Yes, نقطه is point, and ula the ultimate.
Excellent.
Or the primal. Yes, yeah. Ula is primal. Nokte is point, and the I is the possessive or preposition. Yes, but the order is reversed because of the language.
Exactly.
We say primal point,
And this is point
Arabic
primal.
point that is the ultimate. That
Exactly. And nuqta, Riaz John, is or nuqt is that generally is that dot or accent mark in that is over something. Is that correct?
No, exactly. Good question. The nokta is an actual dot it's actual dot. It's not an accent.
Okay.
It's not an accent. However, a major difficulty in reading the writings of the Bab is that he omitted the dots.
Isn't that interesting?
But
so he omitted the dots himself, but he is the dot.
Yeah, because normally the dots always appear, although those accent marks, those are vowels. A, E,
right,
etc. But the dot is part of the letter itself. For example, the B, right, the first letter that has a dot. The B, there's always a dot under the B.
Exactly.
However, the Bab chose to omit dots.
Exactly. Yeah.
In general. So,
and actually, in his trial, when he was on trial, they actually one of the claims against the Blessed Bab in his trial was his poor grammar, and saying that how can you claim to be the Qayyim when your grammar is you have no knowledge of grammar, because and against him was, for example, the lacking of the, as he said, the nuqtas and the dots and everything. So this is I find it also interesting that the title he refers to himself is the primal point, which is per se the most holy dot or sense,
Yeah, the absolute original essence.
Exactly.
So by omitting the dots and these accent marks, all that remains is the body of the letter, of the shape of the letter, the body. What, for example, in English, I, the letter I has a dot. But if we omit the dot, all that remains is the shape of the body of the letter. So people who are able to read the Bob's writings, they look at this form, the body of the letters, and they have to recognize what word is this, because there are no dots. But anyway, so that's my personal understanding.
Excellent. Good insights. And this reminds me where it is also this was just as you were speaking, Riaz John, in the Bible, where it's in the, I believe it's in the book of John. His Holiness Christ says, "I am the Word," you know. Let me just pull up the exact extract. So it says, and he said, "Who do you say that I am?" And he says, "I am the Word," right? And the Word is, and so this is and so it just makes me think of that. And because the word is logos, the word, and that is actually talking about the most great spirit, capital W. I am the word, the beginning and the end. And so this is talking about the most great spirit here, the ʻAbdu'l-Bahá, talking about the primal point here.
Yes, good, yes.
Okay, talking about that he's not talking about himself as Sayyid Ali Muhammad, the humble merchant of Shiraz, you know, talking about his physical reality. He's talking about himself as the manifestation of God, the most at essence.
And now, if you will excuse me, at some point, maybe we could use a clarification of the term most great spirit, because normally in Baha'i communities we refer to the Holy Spirit.
Sure.
But occasionally we notice the use of the most great spirit. And at some point when you feel it's fit, maybe you could give us an explanation of that term and what it is and what it represents and so forth. Thank you very much.
Excellent, Riaz John. Thank you. When that time comes, I will bring that up. Yeah. Excellent. Thank you. All right. Okay. Wonderful. So this was enlightening. So this was the title that the Blessed Bob chose for himself. And this was in a reference to a tablet that he wrote to Muhammad Shah. And according to the great hand of the cause of God, John Esselmont, and in his book, Baha'u'llah in the New Era, which every one of you should read and master, the beloved guardian says. And this is Baha'u'llah in the New Era. This was a title given to Muhammad, the prophet of Islam, by his followers. So this was a title also given to Muhammad. So here the Blessed Bob is taking a title that was also given to Muhammad. So remember, the Muslims are thinking that they're waiting for the, per se, the return of Muhammad. You know, then they're all looking at the reading Quran every day, reading Hadith every day, and praying 5 times a day. And they are, you know, devout Muslims in their own right. And here, the Blessed Bob is now giving himself the title of Muhammad, the Prophet of Islam. Yet they are oblivious and of the recognition of this title as it relates to Muhammad. So this is an incredible per se, appellation that he places upon himself in relation to the Prophet Muhammad. And using this title, the Blessed Bab announced his station as a manifestation of God, comparable to Muhammad. So he puts himself on the same station as Muhammad here by placing himself, by using this title as Primal Point. So that's very significant. And for this reason, the Shia Muslims denounced him as an imposter. So this was a proclamation of the Blessed Bab, of his independent manifestationhood by using of this title. Miss Yuda, please.
Yes, I would like to know what is the difference between Muhammad, the Prophet of Islam, and Muhammad, the manifestation?
It's the same. It's the same terminology. So, if I ever put anything in the presentation, manifestation, as Baha'is, we generally use the term manifestation than prophet. As Muhammad more correctly is a manifestation of God. In this presentation, I put him here as Prophet of Islam, but I put obviously a capital P, because he's not a prophet as in prophesizing. He's not a lesser prophet. He's a manifestation of God. He's a Rasul. He's not a Nabi. You follow? So he is a manifestation of God. So in that sense, that's why he says, announced his station as a manifestation of God comparable to Muhammad. To answer your question, Muhammad is far greater in station than any of the lesser prophets, such as an Isaac or an Isaiah or a Nehemiah or any one of these lesser prophets that are incredibly wonderful in their own rights. But when a manifestation of God, they come with a book, and their book, and they also have teachings that affect and transform humanity. So there's distinctions. A prophet with a small p prophesizes and announces the coming of a manifestation. So this is a difference. But in this presentation, I mentioned prophet, but it's not a prophet as in lesser prophet. Sorry about the confusion, dear Miss Yuda.
Okay.
Thank you so much. Moving on. Okay. So it is interesting to note that His Holiness Baha'u'llah addresses the Bab as the primal point, the most exalted word. So here Baha'u'llah himself also addresses the Bab as the primal point, the most exalted word. In a tablet, ʻAbdu'l-Bahá describes the relationship between the letter and the word. This is such a cool quote, and I encourage you after the class to even remember this extract, reread it, because this is also coming from the Bible. When I mentioned the word, right? So this, I came across this. It is evident that the letter is a member of the word. And this membership in the word signifies that the letter is dependent for its value on the word. That is, it deriveth its grace from the word. It has a spiritual kinship with the word and is accounted an integral part of the word. The apostles were even as letters, and Christ was the essence of the word itself and the meaning of the word, which is grace everlasting, cast a splendor on those letters. Again, since the letter is a member of the word, it is therefore in its inner meaning is consonant with the word. After I read this, dear friends, it made 1,000,000,000 times more sense to me, the title and appellation letters of the living, right? Because here, the manifestation of God here, when he says Christ was the essence of the word itself and the meaning of the word. But what did he call his followers? Letters of the living, right? And they themselves, a letter is a member of the word. And they are dependent for its value on the word. And they derive its grace from the word. And the word is the blessed Bahá. So the letters of the living derived their grace, their value from the word. And as Baha'is, we are and should be letters of the living, deriving our grace from the word. And remember the title that the Blessed Bahá took, the primal point, the most exalted word. Right? That's from Baha'u'llah. So we should be followers of the word. And followers of the word are the letters. And the original in the Gospels these are the letters per se, and these are the followers of His Holiness Jesus Christ, the apostles. So this is from the Blessed Bahá. I am the primal point from which have been generated all created things. I am the countenance of God, whose splendor can never be obscured, the light of God, whose radiance can never fade. Whoso recognizeth me, assurance and all good are in store for him. And whoso faileth to recognize me, infernal fire and all evil await him. So there, right there is the proclamation. Remember the twin duties as a Baha'i we have, recognition and obedience. So here the Blessed Bahá is saying, I am the countenance of God. Countenance of God is a title also of Muhammad. So he's saying, I am the countenance of God, whose splendor can never be obscured. If you remember, the 12th Imam went into hiding, and that Imam, the Blessed Bahá saying, I can never be obscured. I cannot be hidden. The light of God, whose radiance can never fade. Now he's saying, whoso recognizeth me, the recognition of him, whoso recognizeth me, assurance and all good are in store for him. But then the Blessed Bahá says, what happens if you fail to recognize? Infernal fire and all evil await him. Riaz John, you have a hand, please.
Yes, referring to our past discussion, on the left is the actual handwriting of the Bahá.
That's correct.
And I looked through it, I could not find any dots.
That's correct.
There are some diacritical marks, but those are not, there are a few of those, but those are not dots. They are they're complements to actual letters of the alphabet. They look like a dot, but they're not dots. But in general, we can see that, let's say on the first line at the top left, that one diagonal line, if you look through that line, there are no dots.
That's right. Grammatically, it's not, how grammatically, but for beauty, it's more, at least in the eye of beauty, it's more beautiful not having the dots. It has more of a flow than having all these dots all over the place, at least to my eyes. I'm not, but to someone that is used to having dots and having all the accents and all of these, it may seem I cannot read it. I cannot, it doesn't make sense, and it's a lot harder to comprehend. But it shows, at least to my eyes as a Westerner, and it looks much more beautiful, and at least to my eyes. Real John, that's just an observation.
One more observation. Also, the lack of dots could be, in my personal, an indication of the speed, the rapidity of the writing.
That's true too.
There is no, so the flow is continuous at incredible speed. So there is no time to put a dot. First, you have to decide to put a dot. Then you have to put it in the right place. So that takes it takes, I don't know, milliseconds or maybe half a second. I don't know. But it's an indication that the flow is so rapid and the flow is so continuous that there is no time to pause to put a dot. It's simply, if you think of the movement of the hand,
that's right.
It's a continuous movement, and there is no interruptions to put the dot here and put dot there. So that description which Mullah Hussein gave of that evening, the first meeting with the Bab and the Bab's declaration and the revelation of the commentary on the Surah of Joseph, that Mullah Hussein describes the rapidity and intonation of what he was revealed, the Bab was revealing. So that speed, this could be an indication of the speed and the freedom of revelation. So the flow cannot be stopped by pausing to put dots. The flow is so intense, so constant, and so continuous, and so rapid that there is no, literally, maybe no time to put dots. That's another, again, a personal observation. Thank you.
But you're absolutely right, Riaz John. It was such a torrent, such a pouring of the revelation. But in the end, we still don't know. And it was always the choice of the manifestation, what he decided to do. Because obviously the manifestation of God, if he chose, he could have put dots. I mean, and it's not like he couldn't have. The manifestation of God can do whatever he wishes to do or not to do. And in that sense, he didn't. And you're absolutely right. Absolutely right. If you look up the Revelation writing in Revelation of Baha'u'llah volumes, from the writings of Baha'u'llah, when it was just pours out the amanuensis of Mirza Agha Jan, the hand is all over the paper. It's just scribble, 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 scribble. I assure you, you cannot read it. In fact, Mirza Agha Jan would come to Baha'u'llah and prostrate himself in front of Baha'u'llah and plead, "My Lord, please, what did I write? What did I write?" And then Baha'u'llah would, re-reveal the whole thing, and the whole tablet again. And then Mirza Agha Jan would take it back and then rewrite the whole thing. So it's that kind of speed. Absolutely. I mean, the Blessed Bab would reveal the whole, in the first meeting with Mullah Hussein, it was the whole openings of the Surah of Joseph from the Qarayum Asma. I mean, the whole thing was just pouring out. So it's not like, hey, I gotta stop and put a few dots here, as Riaz John mentioned. it's just a revelation. It's an ocean that has been held back in abeyance till the time that was right. And then the doors have been opened. He says, I am the gate. In the onrushing forces of the whole revelation is just pouring out. So it's what you're absolutely right. Spot on, Riyaz. So moving on. The beloved guardian calls our attention to the significance of the term primal point in relation to the location of the Bab's resting place on Mount Carmel. He wrote in a letter dated 18th February 1951. So this is about 6 years before his passing. So remember, so he passed 1957. So this is 18th February 1951. This was to the National Spiritual Assembly of the Baha'is of the United States. This is an incredible extract, and in Priceless Pearl, this is also mentioned. And this is in Citadel of Faith, this extract. So this is what it states, the beloved guardian says, for just as in the realm of the spirit, the reality of the Bab has been hailed by the author of the Baha'i revelation as the point round whom the realities of the prophets and messengers revolve. So on this visible plane, his sacred remains constitute the heart and center of what may be regarded as 9 concentric circles. So 9 concentric circles, paralleling thereby and adding further emphasis to the central position accorded by the founder of our faith, to one from whom God hath caused to proceed the knowledge of all that was and shall be, the primal point from which have been generated all created things. So at the very center of the entire universe is the primal point. So this is an extract in Citadel of Faith. This is just an extract of an extract. So I encourage you to go read it. And in that extract, it addresses what all these 9 concentric circles are. It's very interesting. And I just wanted to pull that, showing that when he mentioned, the beloved guardian mentions, talking about the primal point, the point round whom the realities of the prophets and messengers revolve. It's also on this visible plane. It's not just on the spiritual plane, but it's also here. And that point is the shrine of the Bab. So this is a point where the entire universe, and here in this extract talks about 9 concentric circles. Very interesting, and I encourage you to read it and study it. And finally, this is another one I wanted to pull because we're talking about this title, this appellation that the beloved guardian has given himself, the point. Finally, with regard to the term point, it is a title given by the Bab to the manifestations of God. He refers to himself as the point of the Bayan, and to Muhammad as the point of the Quran, and to each manifestation as the focal point of God's primal will. So this is in selections from the writings of the Bab. We could find this reference here, that when he says, in reference to the point, the noqta, the point, he is referring to himself as the point of the Bayan. And Muhammad is the point of the Quran. And here, we can find this is one of the, per se, drawings of the Blessed Bab here on the right. This is, he would, I'm not sure what exactly this is, but this is what the Blessed Bab, I'm sure is a tablet or references to maybe the 19 holy days, and references to, I am guessing, I apologize, but I don't, but this is one something from the Blessed Bab on the right.
Are there
Looks
19?
like the Badi calendar.
It
Yeah.
doesn't look like that,
Yeah,
does.
yeah, it does look like the Badi calendar. Yes.
Riyashan, you were saying?
Well, it looks like the Badi calendar with the 12 major sections, each representing 1 month, and the layout seems basically it's a cosmological design, meaning
Right,
it's a picture of the universe, let's say.
right.
And these months radiate out, and so the whole universe is on a plane, of course.
Right. There's 19 months on here, and I think each one of these is a title and has and in reference to and talking about probably each one of these is also not just a title, but probably a title of God or something also on here. So that's I'll investigate that more, but it's a little hard to read
Yes.
on with this.
Basically, just by looking at it, it's a cosmological representation
Sure.
of a universal whole, a universal whole.
Sure.
It reflects the perspective of the Bab.
Absolutely.
A perspective that is universal and is cosmological and encompasses everything.
Mhm.
You know, the outermost, we should remember, all of us, that the outermost unit in the Badi calendar is Kolle Shay, which means all things.
Mhm.
That's 19 times 19 years, or 361. But the structure of Kolle Shay and the name is all things. So it encompasses, the perspective is that it encompasses everything, the entire universe, the entire cosmology, the entire creation itself. It's a universal perspective.
Exactly. And that's why Ayamiha are the days outside of time, because a Kulashay is the complete, because it's 19 and 19. Vahed of times Vahed, 19, so it's complete. So, but the extra 4 or 5 days at the end, before the end, in the month of Allah, which is the starting of the fasting season, that is the days outside of time, and those are in preparation for the Baha'i fast. And it's that is, I found that very interesting, how that if you really study the Ayamaha, it's how that is part of the Badi calendar. It's very interesting, but excellent. Thank you, Riaz John. And moving on, let us get these last few slides in, and then we'll get into our section on ʻAbdu'l-Bahá. So in paragraph 65, this is such a cool analogy that I really enjoyed. In paragraph 65, His Holiness ʻAbdu'l-Bahá is describing the relationship between these twin manifestations, the Blessed Bab and Baha'u'llah. And in order to illustrate this relationship, he uses the signs of the zodiac, which is an imaginary belt through space, along which the sun, the moon, and the nearest planets appear to travel. And the belt is divided into 12 equal parts, known as signs, each named after a group of stars, which were once in them. So let's go to paragraph 65, and then I will read this one so everyone can, and here it says, okay. In making such a statement, he explains, I had in mind no one else except the Bab and Baha'u'llah, the character of whose revelations it had been my purpose to elucidate, The revelation of the Bab may be likened to the sun, its station corresponding to the first sign of the zodiac, the sign Aries. Aries right here. The first sign of Aries, okay? Which the sun enters at the vernal equinox. The station of Baha'u'llah's revelation, on the other hand, is represented by the sign Leo, the sun's midsummer and highest station. By this is meant that this holy dispensation is illumined with the light of the sun of truth, shining from its most exalted station and in the plenitude of its resplendency, its heat and glory. So Leo should be right in the heart of the summer, right? And we all know that in Texas, you know, what summer means. So right in Aries is the Nowruz time, the coming of spring, and the great announcement of the spring season. The flowers are blooming, life is renewing, coming to the world. And that is the sign of Aries, as ʻAbdu'l-Bahá mentioned. And here, the sign of on this zodiac that ʻAbdu'l-Bahá is describing, the sign of Baha'u'llah is Leo, which is at the midmost summer point, is right at the heart of summer, and midmost highest point, the sun's midsummer and highest station. Okay. Riaz John, please, you had a hand.
Just my personal observation that this image of the zodiac is similar to the previous image from the Bab. Babs had 19 sections. The zodiac has 12 sections radiating out into the universe. However, my observation is that the zodiac is based on physical star formations in the universe. So, but the Bab's perspective is beyond the physical. That's he reveals 19 radiating sections, but each of these is far beyond the physical, because those are not related to physical star formations. Those are spiritual radiations. He names each section with a spiritual significance and a spiritual concentration, so that the Bab's perspective is totally beyond the physical, encompasses the spiritual, and that's shows us how encompassing that is, since in the writings many times we see earth and heaven, the dwellers of earth and heaven. So that image produced by the Bab, revealed by the Bab, really encompasses both the physical and the spiritual realms of creation. So it's really kol shay, absolutely everything.
You're absolutely right. And in this paragraph is just an extract from it. These 9 concentric circles, one of those is all the stars and the planets and all cosmos and all things beyond. So, and at the very heart and center of everything is the Blessed Bab. And this is on the physical reality as well as the spiritual. And we see this here when he says, talking about, for just as in the realm of the spirit, the reality of the Bab has been hailed as the author of the Baha'i revelation, the point round whom the realities of the prophets and messengers revolve. So not only the prophets and messengers revolve, but also on the visible plane. So this is an incredible, and it blows your mind. It really is. It's one of those like blowing your mind things that at the very heart and center of the entire physical universe, as well as spiritual universe, is the Blessed Bab. And so I will send this extract, the full one, talking about these 9 concentric circles, the stations. And it's very interesting, and encourage you to read it deeply, and talking about all, how at the very, very center. And what I really love is, and it's mentioned in the Priceless Pearl when the ʻAbdu'l-Bahá talking about the beloved guardian, that he's at the very center, because it brings yourself to that understanding of when the blessed beloved guardian was placing and erecting the shrine of the Bab, and what the significance of the shrine of the Bab, that it's at the very center of these 9 concentric circles, that the whole universe, everything revolves around this. And the beloved guardian, what an incredible, incredible, incredible soul, that he didn't even need to use a ruler per se to get the alignment right. You should read the Priceless Pearl. It's so exact, the angle of the shrine of the Bab to Bahji, that he didn't even need to get that per se compass or ruler to get the precision right. It's an incredible thing, and I encourage you to read and reread this. And what it does is it brings in the heart greater Iran, certitude about the Blessed Bab, who and the Blessed Bab is as a manifestation of God, and creates a greater love within your heart with the Blessed Bab. What an incredible, incredible soul and gift to humanity and sacrifice that he gave through his intense, majestic and intense period of his ministry. So I just wanted to touch on that. We're almost finished this section, and then we're going to get into the section on ʻAbdu'l-Bahá today. So ʻAbdu'l-Bahā's illustration is based on the Persian calendar, in which Nowruz on the 21st of March is the first day of the year, corresponding to the first day of spring and the sign of Aries in the zodiac. This is when the sun enters the vernal equinox. And His Holiness ʻAbdu'l-Bahá indicates that the revelation of the Bab is like the first appearance of the sun in spring, in the sign of Aries, when the fresh new sun appears in its earthly springtime. And here you can see on the right, Nowruz, literally new day. This is the Baha'i New Year, the festival, and falls at the spring equinox. On March 21st, Nowruz symbolizes the new life of spring. And similarly, ʻAbdu'l-Bahá states that the revelation of Baha'u'llah is like the appearance of the sun at its maximum splendor and brilliance during the sign of Leo. This is the highest station of the radiance of the Sun of Truth. The sun, the sign of Leo, corresponds to the period of the 21st of July to the 20th of August. And this is the midsummer in the northern hemisphere, when the sun reaches its maximum splendor and brilliance. Yeah. And Leo, this the lion, right? The ultimate roar. And it's the midmost summer heat and light. So in his simple simile, this analogy, ʻAbdu'l-Bahá affirms a number of fundamental beliefs of the Baha'i faith. The first is the unity of the manifestations of God, according to which the revelations of the Bab and Baha'u'llah are simply the manifestation of the same sun at different times. So this is about the unity of the manifestations of God. They are one and the same, but just at different positions, at different times. The second concept addressed by ʻAbdu'l-Bahá is that the differences observed between different revelations from God are due to a variance in the intensity of those revelations, not their significance or rank. So the revelation's intensity is due to that revelation's intensity. And that is their purpose. So the intensity of those revelations, not their significance or rank. So it doesn't, you cannot say one revelation is more important or greater than another. They're different based upon their intensity and their period of revelation, because they come at different points at different times. And this is from the writings. It says, all the prophets are united in their message and unshaken. They are like the sun in different seasons. They ascend from different rising points on the horizon. So you cannot say one manifestation is more important than another manifestation. They are one and the same. It's just they differ based upon the intensity of their revelation and the message at that point in time, due to the differences of the capacities of the people at that point in time. The statement of ʻAbdu'l-Bahá also highlights that the intensity of the revelation of Baha'u'llah is greater than the revelation of the Blessed Bab. This is logical when the missions of the two revelations are compared. This is unique, again, my dear friends. This is unique because never in the history of faith has two manifestations of God appeared at the same time. We could say, oh, one manifestation of God, they are different because also, it's not just that they are different based upon their message, but we could also say they're different based upon their messages because the capacities of the people at that point in time are different. But the manifestations of the Blessed Bab and Baha'u'llah, they both appeared at the same point at the same time. So the capacities of the people at that point in time, you could say, are pretty much the same because they're, it's the same people. But the revelation is different because their missions were different. And so this is, it was not just about the capacities of the people, it was also the missions of the revelations were also different. So this is another thing. This is that is done. So this is from the Blessed Bab. It says, when the tree of the Bayan attaineth its highest development, we shall bend it low as a token of adoration towards its Lord, who will appear in the person of him whom God shall make manifest. Perchance you may be privileged to glorify God as it befits his august self. And so what is the tree of the Bayan attaineth its highest development? This is talking about the revelation of the Blessed Bab. When the revelation of the Blessed Bab reaches its highest and most ultimate point. And when a tree reaches its highest and ultimate point, what? It gives off fruits, right? And so it says when the fruits of the tree of the Blessed Bab has reached that point of giving off fruits, the Blessed Bab says, we shall bend it low. The whole tree of the Blessed Bab will enter into a prostration. It will prostrate itself towards whom? towards its Lord, who will appear in the person of him whom God shall make manifest. It's a title of Baha'u'llah. So the whole tree of the Blessed Bab will prostrate itself to Baha'u'llah. And then the Blessed Bab says, perchance, maybe, hopefully, perchance. What a loving word. Perchance, you may be privileged to glorify God as it befits his august self. Hopefully, perchance, you may have the great honor and be privileged to glorify God as it befits his august self. And there we are, dear friends, paragraph 62 through 67. Hopefully in these last set paragraphs, you get a little bit more awe. The word is awe of the Blessed Bab, and how incredible, how awesome, how truly wonderful is the Blessed Bab. So now we enter into our next paragraph set. We're at 803. How great. So we have time to enter into our next section. Now entering into ʻAbdu'l-Bahá. Oh, Riaz John, as always, before we enter into our next section,
Yes.
please.
Since we, in our minds, again, this is my personal view. Since we have the Bab's mission fresh in our minds,
go for it.
We should always and about his station and his historical position. We should always keep in mind that it was the Bab, meaning he had this cosmological perspective and this even the cosmological function, because it was the Bab who terminated an entire universal cycle, which was the Adamic cycle. He terminated that on that night and inaugurated a whole new universal cycle promised in all human traditions, the universal cycle of no less than 500,000 years in its extension. And so here's at the center, this primal point is at this unique center. On that fateful night, 2 hours and 11 minutes past sunset, in the presence of declaring his mission to Malaus, at that moment, and the Bab says, this night and this moment will be remembered throughout history as one of the greatest events in history, or in human history. It was at that moment that Adamic cycle, he brought that Adamic cycle to an end, and with such courage and determination inaugurated this new universal cycle promised to entire humanity. So that's really a he's a cosmological being at that junction of the two universal cycles. And since we talk about cosmological, on the structure of the shrine of the Bab, the beloved guardian of the cause of God, Shawq Effendi, on each corner, on each of the four corners, he has placed the symbolic cosmological design that is the greatest name in the we call it as the ringstone symbol. That is a cosmological view of creation or of existence, and Shawq Effendi put that design carved that design into each of the four corners of the shrine of the Bab, to me personally, to remind us the cosmological place and actions that the Bab took.
Excellently said. Thank you, Riaz John. Thank you. All right, my dear friends. Now we are entering into our next paragraph set, our next section. So now we're entering into the section ʻAbdu'l-Bahá. All right. So we're entering into paragraph 68 through 74. So if we don't finish tonight, as we have roughly half an hour left, your homework is to read paragraph 68 through 74. So the topics that are in this paragraph set is one, confusion regarding the station of ʻAbdu'l-Bahá. And the beloved guardian also writes about the true station of ʻAbdu'l-Bahá, as well as ʻAbdu'l-Bahá is not a manifestation of God. And the beloved guardian also quotes from the Will and Testament of ʻAbdu'l-Bahá. So here in the opening paragraphs of this section of ʻAbdu'l-Bahá, the beloved guardian is addressing these subjects. Confusion. Who is ʻAbdu'l-Bahá? And so we're, as well as the station of ʻAbdu'l-Bahá. So we're going to read these paragraphs and then get into our study. Here we go. Okay, I'll read the paragraph 68 and then we'll go around. Okay, here we go, dear friends. Dearly beloved friends, I have in the foregoing pages ventured to attempt an exposition of such truths as I firmly believe are implicit in the claim of him who is the fountainhead of the Baha'i revelation. I have, moreover, endeavored to dissipate such misapprehensions as may naturally arise in the mind of anyone contemplating so superhuman a manifestation of the glory of God. I have striven to explain the meaning of the divinity with which he who is the vehicle of so mysterious an energy must needs be invested, that the message which so great a being has in this age been commissioned by God to deliver to mankind recognizes the divine origin and upholds the first principles of every dispensation inaugurated by the prophets of the past, and stands inextricably interwoven with each one of them. I have also, to the best of my ability, undertaken to demonstrate that the author of such a faith, who repudiates the claim to finality which leaders of various denominations uphold, has, despite the vastness of his revelation, disclaimed it for himself. I have, likewise, felt it necessary to prove and emphasize that the Bab, notwithstanding the duration of his dispensation, should be regarded primarily not as the chosen precursor of the Baha'i faith, but as one invested with the undivided authority assumed by each of the independent prophets of the past, seemed to me yet another basic principle, the elucidation of which would be extremely desirable at the present stage of the evolution of our cause. All right. Dear Doug, could you read this one for us?
An attempt, I strongly feel, should now be made to clarify our minds regarding the station occupied by ʻAbdu'l-Bahá and the significance of his position in this holy dispensation. It would be indeed difficult for us who stand so close to such a tremendous figure and are drawn by the mysterious power of so magnetic a personality to obtain a clear and exact understanding of the role and character of one who, not only in the dispensation of Baha'u'llah, but in the entire field of religious history, fulfills a unique function. though moving in a sphere of his own and holding a rank radically different from that of the author and the forerunner of the Baha'i revelation. He, by virtue of the station ordained for him, through the covenant of Baha'u'llah, forms together with them what may be termed the three central figures of a faith that stands unapproached in the world's spiritual history. He towers in conjunction with them above the destinies of this infant faith of God from a level to which no individual or body ministering to its needs after him, and for no less a period than a full 1,000 years, can ever hope to rise. To degrade his lofty rank by identifying his station with or by regarding it as roughly equivalent to the position on those on whom the mantle of his authority has fallen would be an act of impiety, as grave as the no less heretical belief that inclines to exalt him to a state of absolute equality with either the central figure or forerunner of our faith. For wise as is the gulf that separates ʻAbdu'l-Bahá from him who is the source of an independent revelation, it can never be regarded as commensurate with the greater distance that stands between him, who is the center of the covenant, and his ministers, who are to carry on his work, whatever be their name, their rank, their functions, or their future achievements. Let those who have known ʻAbdu'l-Bahá, who through their contact with his magnetic personality have come to cherish for him so fervent an admiration, reflect in the light of this statement on the greatness of one who is so far above him in station.
Excellently read, dear Doug. Thank you. Miss Luann, could you kindly read this one?
That ʻAbdu'l-Bahá is not a manifestation of God, that through the successor of his father, that though the successor of his father, he does not occupy a cognate station. Is that correct?
That's correct, the cognate station.
That no one else except the Bab and Baha'u'llah can ever lay claim to such a station before the expiration of a full 1,000 years, are verities which lie embedded in the specific utterances of both the founder of our faith and the interpreter of his teachings.
Thank you, Miss Luann. And we go to paragraph 71. Dear Miss Yuda, could you read this one for us?
Whoso layers claim to a revelation direct from God is the express warning uttered in the Kitab-i Aqdas. Ere the expiration of a full 1,000 years, such a man is assuredly a lying impostor. We pray God that he may graciously assist him to retract and repudiate such claim. Should he repent, God will no doubt forgive him. If, however, he persists in his error, God will assuredly send down one who will deal mercilessly with him. Terrible indeed is God in punishing. Whosoever, he adds as a further emphasis, interpreteth this verse otherwise than it is obviously, its obvious meaning, is deprived of the Spirit of God and of his mercy, which encompasses all created things. Should a man appear, is yet another conclusive statement, ere the lapse of a full 1,000 years, each year consisting of 12 months according to the Quran, and of 19 months of 19 days each according to the Bayan. And if such a man reveals to your eyes all the signs of God, unhesitantly reject him.
Thank you, Miss Yuda. Very well read. All right. Riaz John, if you could kindly read this one for us.
ʻAbdu'l-Bahā's own statements. In confirmation of this warning, are no less emphatic and binding. This is, he declares, my unshakable conviction, the essence of my unconcealed and explicit belief, a conviction and belief which the denizens of the Bahā kingdom fully share. The blessed beauty is the Son of Truth, and his light, the light of truth. The Bab is likewise the Son of Truth, and his light, the light of truth. My station is the station of servitude, a servitude which is complete, pure and real, firmly established, enduring, obvious, explicitly revealed, and subject to no interpretation whatever. I am the interpreter of the word of God. Such is my interpretation.
Thank you, Riaz John. Dear Marianne, could you read this one for us?
Yes.
Thank you
Does
so much.
not ʻAbdu'l-Bahá, in his own will, in a tone and language that might well confound the most inveterate among the breakers of his father's covenant, rob of their chief weapon those who so long and so persistently had striven to impute to him the charge of having tacitly claimed a station equal, if not superior, to that of Baha'u'llah. The foundation of the belief of the people of Baha is this. Thus proclaims one of the weightiest passages of that last document left to voice in perpetuity the direction and wishes of a departed master. His Holiness, the Exalted One, the Bab, is the manifestation of the unity and oneness of God and the forerunner of the ancient beauty. His Holiness, the Upper Beauty, Baha'u'llah, may my life be a sacrifice for his steadfast friends, is the supreme manifestation of God and the dayspring of his most divine essence. All others are servants unto him and do his bidding.
Thank you, dear Marianne. Very well read. Okay. From such clear and formally laid down statements, incompatible as they are with any assertion of a claim to prophethood, we should not by any means infer that ʻAbdu'l-Bahá is merely one of the servants of the Blessed Beauty, or at best one whose function is to be confined to that of an authorized interpreter of his father's teachings. Far be it from me to entertain such a notion or to wish to instill such sentiments. To regard him in such a light is a manifest betrayal of the priceless heritage bequeathed by Baha'u'llah to mankind. Immeasurably exalted is the station conferred upon him by the Supreme Pen above and beyond the implications of these, his own written statements, whether in the Kitab Ahdas, the most weighty and sacred of all the works of Baha'u'llah, or in the Kitab Ad, the book of his covenant, or in the Surah Qasna, the tablet of the branch, such references as have been recorded by the pen of Baha'u'llah, references which the tablets of his father addressed to him mightily reinforce, invest ʻAbdu'l-Bahá with a power and surround him with a halo, which the present generation can never adequately appreciate. So there we are, dear friends. These are the paragraphs that we covered. So we opened with the paragraph statement of confusion of who is ʻAbdu'l-Bahá. Then very clear and very direct statements on the station of ʻAbdu'l-Bahá. So in this section of this letter, now we're opening in this section on ʻAbdu'l-Bahá. The beloved guardian is summarizing the topics that he has so far addressed in this letter. He's already talked at length on the station of Baha'u'llah, as well as on the Blessed Bab. And now he wants to clarify regarding the station of ʻAbdu'l-Bahá. So he's covering the central figures, right? So this is his third central figure. And he is highlighting the significance of ʻAbdu'l-Bahá's position in the dispensation of Baha'u'llah. So here are the key points that we're going to be, that are in these paragraph sets, 68 through 74. The station of ʻAbdu'l-Bahá has been a source of confusion, particularly during his own lifetime. So some people like, ʻAbdu'l-Bahá's station was confusing? Even some Baha'is even today are confused with the station. I've met Baha'is even today that are confused with the station of ʻAbdu'l-Bahá. And that's why I encourage you to study and read not only the writings of ʻAbdu'l-Bahá, but the writings such of the beloved guardian, such as the Dispensation of Baha'u'llah. It clarifies, it gives the clarity to the station of ʻAbdu'l-Bahá, as well as read the writings of ʻAbdu'l-Bahá, read the writings of the beloved guardian, read the writings and stories even of who is ʻAbdu'l-Bahá. That gives you understanding of who is ʻAbdu'l-Bahá. ʻAbdu'l-Bahá was explicitly appointed by the Blessed Beauty as the authorized and unerring interpreter of his words and the center of his covenant. In contrast to his function and station, ʻAbdu'l-Bahá chose the title of servant of Bahá for himself and manifested utmost humility and purity of spirit in all his deeds and words. ʻAbdu'l-Bahá had actually many titles, and we may actually cover some of these titles in this section. He actually had many titles, but the title that he took upon himself is ʻAbdu'l-Bahá. So his given name is Abbas Effendi, and so, but his title that he took upon himself is ʻAbdu'l-Bahá, and that is servant of Bahá. And this is just a symbol of ʻAbdu'l-Bahā's utmost humility, that service is the highest station that we as humans can do, is to be in service. So that is, and ʻAbdu'l-Bahā is our perfect exemplar. So if as humanity that we want to reach the highest potential that we can achieve, would be in service. And it's one of those things that makes you think, and it's because service is humility, right? You're giving of yourself. The action is away from yourselves. So instead of focusing any aspect on yourself, you're completely erasing of yourself. And through that action, it is the purest and highest and noblest thing that an individual can do, is service. And so that is our example of what an ultimate, the highest and ultimate per se personage can be, and that is ʻAbdu'l-Bahā. Okay, it's hard to even to talk about ʻAbdu'l-Bahā because it's ʻAbdu'l-Bahā, right? But we're going to go through this section to really talk about who is ʻAbdu'l-Bahā. At present, only the Bab and Baha'u'llah can claim to be a manifestation of God before the expiry of 1,000 years from the date of the declaration of Baha'u'llah. This was a major point of confusion, and this is why the beloved guardian put a couple paragraphs in the Dispensation of Baha'u'llah very clearly and categorically stating ʻAbdu'l-Bahā is not a manifestation of God, and pulling the extracts and stating that that ʻAbdu'l-Bahā is not a manifestation of God, and that even in the Kitab Ahdas that there cannot be a manifestation of God before the expiration of at least 1,000 years. But although ʻAbdu'l-Bahā has a rank radically different from the Bab and Baha'u'llah, he is considered to be one of the central figures of the Baha'i dispensation, together with Baha'u'llah and the Bab. His station is unique, and he is not a manifestation of God, and he is not of a station of a normal and typical individual. He is far greater, far greater, and so incomparable. So his station is Sirrullah. He's the mystery of God. So we're going to be talking at much more greater length on this subject. All right. So now the first part, let me check our time. This is oh my goodness, 8:31. So next week, we'll get into this. So there you go. Next week, we're going to get into this section, and it's really exciting. Some really cool slides. So I encourage you, don't miss it, because it's going to be very interesting, especially some of the aspect of confusion of ʻAbdu'l-Bahā, who the Westerners and as well as the Easterners were very confused with especially when ʻAbdu'l-Bahā came to this continent. They thought he was the Prince of Peace. They thought he was the return of Christ. They had no idea who this was. And on top of it, Ibrahim Khairullah doubly confused them. And then they had no idea who this saint was. Some called him a saint. Some called him, the Messiah. Some called him Christ among us. And so it's very interesting. So I've tried to pull different sources to show the confusion, even among the Baha'is, among the press. And I tried to even find it from the East, because even some of the friends in the East were confused with the station of ʻAbdu'l-Bahá. So here, why this document is so important for Baha'is to study and master is because, and the beloved guardian is outlining in crystal clear detail everything what the Baha'i faith stands for, the fundamental truths. Who is Baha'u'llah? Who is the Blessed Bab? Who is ʻAbdu'l-Bahá? How are they related to each other? What are the fundamental truths of what does it mean to be a Baha'i? What is this progressive revelation? And how are the manifestations of God related to? And what does this Baha'i faith stand for? You see? Absolute clarity. And so it makes this faith very in the last, per se, 40 some odd pages, the beloved guardian has already outlined who is Baha'u'llah, who is the Bab. Now he is coming into explaining and clarifying and dispelling any doubts or misunderstandings of now who is ʻAbdu'l-Bahá. So this is what the dispensation of Baha'u'llah is about, being clear. And it's, if you look at the will and testament of ʻAbdu'l-Bahá, if you look at the per se the will of Baha'u'llah, the Lawh al-Burhan, the tablets of the proof, these major documents of where Baha'u'llah wrote his and then the will and testament of ʻAbdu'l-Bahá. These documents are and the dispensation of Baha'u'llah are where they write down to clarify what the faith stands for. What is the Baha'i faith? Will and testament of ʻAbdu'l-Bahá is he was multiple times under attack. And so he had to write down, what does the faith stand for? You see, he very clearly states, I am ʻAbdu'l-Bahá. My first state is I confess my love to the Blessed Bab. I confess my absolute love to Baha'u'llah. And then at the very end, what does he say? Everyone else is a follower of Baha'u'llah, is a servant of Baha'u'llah. And when he says everyone else, it doesn't omit himself. He's saying everyone else, including ʻAbdu'l-Bahá, is a servant. Remember, he calls himself the servant of Baha'u'llah. So this is his own written confession of his love and obedience. And that's why it's called will and testament. He's testifying. I testify, just like in court, he is testifying his, and that really is per se his, back in the day, they didn't have a Baha'i ID, a Baha'i ID. This is his Baha'i ID. The will and testament of ʻAbdu'l-Bahá is saying, I testify. This is my testament of my belief, that what I believe. And that is ʻAbdu'l-Bahā's. Dispensation of Baha'u'llah is the beloved guardian's will and testament in reality. And you can look that up from Mr. Naqshbandi, because this is per se his will and testament, and is very clear about what are the beliefs of the faith of Baha'u'llah. Okay, so very good, dear friends. We're at our closing point for tonight, this evening. I opened up for maybe one thought or one point or question, and then we'll have our closing prayer. Any thoughts from any of our dear friends, or a question at this point? Oh, Riaz John, you have a hand, please.
Very, very briefly, at the beginning of paragraph 71, there's a reference to revelation direct from God. That is in relation to that 1000. Again, totally my personal view. that expiration, that 1,000 years, which Baha'u'llah so emphatically
Right.
defines as to be a real period of 1,000 years.
Right.
And Baha'u'llah says, if anyone claims to have a revelation direct from God, so what hits me is that this revelation direct from God, this is a very special process. This is no someone's imagination or someone's ideation. This Baha'u'llah says a revelation direct from God. This is a major, and we're a major event to which we have no experiential feel for. We have no idea what this is. We cannot feel what if intrinsic, and I don't know how to say it, in its essence, what this is. This is a very special occurrence in creation, in the creation of God, this revelation direct from God. This is a, I hope I cannot express it. It's and in Christianity, there's only a very brief mention of this when Jesus says, "What I'm telling you is not from me, but it's from the Father."
Right.
That's essentially this, but it's in Jesus' words. It's such a soft, very soft way of him explaining this. But here in this revelation, we have a much better feel for the potency of this process, and which Baha'u'llah singles out as a real process in the whole of creation, this revelation direct from God.
No, that's right there, right in the opening of that statement from uttered in the Kitabah. That's the prior paragraph, right there. It says, this is the one that our dear friend Doug read. When it said, an attempt I strongly feel should now be made to clarify our minds regarding the station occupied by ʻAbdu'l-Bahá and the significance of his position in this holy dispensation. It would be indeed difficult for us who stand so close to such a tremendous figure and are drawn by the mysterious power of so magnetic a personality to obtain a clear and exact understanding of the role and character of one who not only in the dispensation of Baha'u'llah, but in the entire field of religious history fulfills a unique function. I feel this statement not only in regards to His Holiness ʻAbdu'l-Bahá, but we are so close at this stage to this revelation. And when I say this revelation, I'm talking about not only the revelation of His Holiness and Blessedness, the Bab, but also to Baha'u'llah, and obviously in the dispensation of Baha'u'llah, we're so close to this personage of ʻAbdu'l-Bahá to get a feel, just even in a feeling of who they are, what they are, and the tremendous impact that they have had. So that's, dear friends, this is why, to gain this, an understanding, striving to obtain a more adequate understanding of this revelation of Baha'u'llah. This should be one, according to the dispensation of Baha'u'llah, it's very opening. It says, striving to obtain a more adequate understanding should be our primal purpose for every Baha'i. This is in page 100, to strive to obtain a more adequate understanding of the significance of Baha'u'llah's stupendous revelation. Must, it is my unalterable conviction, remain the first obligation and the object of the constant endeavor of each one of its loyal adherents. So if that is our first obligation, to gain this more of this revelation, we, as I mentioned, we're just so close to it. And as dear Riaz John mentioned, it's so vast. It's so mind-blowingly vast. When we talked about the blessed Bab, I get blown away every time. Riaz John talking about the pouring, and that when he calls himself the primal point, there's no dots. And I'm like, my mind is getting blown at the awesomeness of the Bab. And then when we're talking about Baha'u'llah, and now we're just going to get into ʻAbdu'l-Bahá, my mind gets blown. Dear friends, this is why we need to study more, read more, so that our capacity and love and opens up to this, because we're just so close. We look around at our Baha'i communities and we look around at what is going on, and then we do what is called comparisons. We think we know what the faith of God is based upon what we see around us. It's not this. Remember, Christianity has had 2,000 years. Islam has had 1,000 years. And even what Islam and Christianity is still, it's had their peak and it's had their fall, as they say, It has had their spring, their summer, and their autumn, and now winter. We're still at the very birth point of the faith. Just the first shoots are opening out of the ground. And we're at the very beginning of what this beautiful Baha'i faith is. And we say, oh, I know what the Baha'i faith is. I understand this thing. I understand the principles, Dear friends, the faith is just emerged out of obscurity. The first shoot has just popped out of its head. There's so much to this. It's so much. And that's why we encourage you, dear friends, to read deeply, study deeply, and absorb as much as you can. And then translate that into love, burning love in your heart, and teach. So this is something that is a lifelong journey. Anyway, dear friends, the hour is late. And Riaz John, you make me too excited, so I always bring up these things. So anyway, let us have a closing prayer, and then we can say good night to every one of you, dear friends. All right. Oh, Miss Yuda has a hand. Please, Miss Yuda. Thank you so much to every one of you guys, and wishing you the absolute best.
O my God, verily these servants are turning to thee, supplicating thy kingdom of mercy. Verily, they are attracted by thy holiness and set aglow with the fire of thy love, seeking confirmation from thy wondrous kingdom and hoping for attainment in thy heavenly realm. Verily, they long for the descent of thy bestowal, desiring illumination from the Sun of reality. O Lord, make them radiant lamps, merciful signs, fruitful trees, and shining stars. May they come forth in thy service and be connected with thee by the bonds and ties of thy love, longing for the lights of thy favor. O Lord, make them signs of guidance, standards of thine immortal kingdom, waves of the sea of thy mercy, mirrors of the light of thy majesty. Verily, thou art the generous. Verily, thou art the merciful. Verily, thou art the precious, the beloved ʻAbdu'l-Bahá.
Beautiful. Thank you very much, dear Yuda. And thank you to every one of you, and wishing you all a wonderful week, and see you next week.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Bye.
Bye.